All right, so I'm going to apologize now. I have the back-to-school death cold. I don't know if anybody else is going through this with their families, but please bear with me with the laryngitis. And I just want to thank you very much for coming today. This is our first session for our 2014-2015 Innovation Catalyst Seminar Series, and we're really glad to have you join us. My name is Maria Emanuel. I'm the Associate Director of UNH Innovation, and in a couple minutes I'll introduce my colleagues so you know who we are. So we started these seminars back in January 2011. We've covered a breadth of topics, and we want to keep going this year. We're going to try a few things a little differently. One of them is a format. We're going to do an interview style format. Traditionally we've done presentations, but our focus is still the same. We want to bring to you topics that we hope are interesting and helpful as you think about innovations and entrepreneurialism, whether you're in a research lab or in a commercial venture or something that crosses the chasm. And the other thing that we want to be able to do is to provide an opportunity where like-minded folks interested in these opportunities can get together and get to know each other and have some good conversations. So let me see. Another change is that we've pushed our start time back, which I know for some of our patrons of the past was a bit of a surprise. So what we'd like to do this year is we're going to start our programs at 4:30. Please join us anytime after 4. Network, grab a beer, a bottle of water. We'll do an interview essentially between a moderator and a guest for about 45 minutes, and then finish with a Q&A period with the audience. And then, of course, we want to finish it up with more networking, enjoy beverages, some appetizers, and a chance to speak with each other. I have to put in the requirement, or the reminder of the requirement that you have to be over 21, right, to have the beer, so no surprise there. I wanted to thank our generous sponsors for our seminar series. We have Finch & Maloney, which is a law firm that provides intellectual property counseling and services for technology businesses. They're located in Manchester, New Hampshire. And our gold sponsor is Divine Millimet, also located in Manchester, New Hampshire. And they're a full-service legal firm for anywhere from individuals to companies. And I wanted to specifically mention that they have a small business team for information and services for starting to operating businesses ranging in size from small to medium size. And that may be of interest for some folks. Next month's seminar will be on October 23rd. I should say we roughly try to have these the fourth Thursday of every month, except for about every 2 months when we have a holiday or something else. So we'll keep a posted schedule. And for that one, we're going to be discussing innovative partnerships. Our guest will be Chris Dundorf. He's the president of 2KR, a company up in Barrington. And our moderator will be Scott Valcourt, UNH's IT Director of Strategic Technologies. So before I introduce our speaker today, or our guest, I wanted to introduce the rest of UNH Innovation. So if you guys can just kind of wave your hand when I get to you. I'll start with Mark Sadam, who is our Executive Director. We have Tristan Carrier, our Licensing Manager. Annie Schofield, who's our Program Support Assistant. Paige Smith, our Business Manager. Chelsea DiGiuseppe, our Marketing Manager. And Tim Willis, our other Licensing Manager. And so you can identify us by our spiffy clothes and our logo. So with that, I want to kick off today's seminar, and I want to introduce you to Yvon Durant. And we're going to have a story today about taking the idea and transitioning it from the lab, literally for Yvon's case, to a commercial product, and then highlighting some of the resources along the way that were a part of that process. Yvon is the co-founder of Idaconex, and he's the current CTO. And Idaconex is a world leader in producing polymers from itaconic acid for everyday applications. And we'll hear some more about that shortly. Yvon co-founded the company in 2008. He was born, raised, educated in France, first came to UNH as part of its PhD program, and then came back to do his postdoc here. And because that really wasn't enough of a challenge, at the same time, he simultaneously earned his MBA also at UNH. So,
bad idea.
Bad idea, he says. He might have been a little tired for a few years. And after his postdoc and MBA with us, he went back to Germany and he worked with BASF for a few years before coming back and joining the material science group. He was with the Material Science program from 1998 through 2011, and during his time there was the Associate Director of the program and the Director of the Nanostructured Polymer Research Center. And so we're really fortunate to have Yvon kick off our series today. I think he has a great story to tell, and it'll be interesting to hear how all these backgrounds have fused together with his experiences from academia, from large industry, and now a smaller size business as well. So with that, holler if you can't hear me. I think you'll have no problems with Yvon, and we can get started.
Thank you, Maria.
Well, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
This is kind of fun for me because you were one of my first clients that I worked with when I started at
one of your first victims.
Yes, yes. And we spent time back in Parsons Hall before renovations and air conditioning.
That's right.
Yeah, I remember that very well.
Yeah, it was about 8 years ago. I remember starting. That was exciting.
Yeah, in many ways. And there's a lot of things I'm hoping that we'll highlight today. But one is, I just wonder if you could kind of set the stage for us and tell us a little bit about Idaconex and what the company does and what it's like, what the size is, what you do.
So I'll tell you a little bit what the company is at this point, and I'd be happy to walk as far back as you care to listen to. So we make components like this. We make chemicals. We're a specialty chemical company. We make polymers. Polymers are large molecules. You take small molecule, you attach them like pearls on the necklace, makes long molecules. And we have a process that's very unique, and we do this product. We don't sell it in bottle like this. This we give for free. We'll give you a box of 25 kilograms for free. After this, we want you to buy 1 ton. Feel free to look at it. We sell by the ton. It's a medium-sized manufacturing, so we sell, we ship freight trucks. We have a warehouse in Belgium. Company went global very quickly. First customer was in Texas in 2009. It was very exciting. Starting company in 2008, first sale in 2009. That was a huge win. That was a tiny check, but that was a sale. They paid for it. And we gave Maria and her office a royalty check that year. Very proud of it. I still have a photocopy of that first check.
Can we tell them what it was for, the first royalty
No, don't.
check? I think it's great.
It's less than $1, so.
Less than $1. We all did a cheer for it. It was really exciting.
That's right. You start a company to go make money. If you don't make money, you're going to die. So just going over that hump was a big deal. So we are in detergents, primarily in detergents. I just brought a few props here that are a lot more exciting than the bottle of powder that's running around the room. Companies that you know, Method, well-established company. It's everywhere. We're on their automatic dishwasher. Ecover has been one of our larger customers. They are pretty wide in Europe as a green brand. You may see this if you go at Market Basket, Planet, pretty good brand. Go Family Dollar, we make the whole formulation for Family Dollar. So that's an example of a private brand, a private label. Family Dollars knows nothing about formulating products. They just want to have the product with their name on it so they get better margin on it. And obviously was not going to bring about 40 different products we have there. I didn't want to carry this many. I'll give you an idea of what we are. So we're one component that goes into detergents, and what chemistry we do in there, we soften the water. We do the water conditioning. We take the hardness of the water out so that the surfactants and the enzymes can do their job better.
Perfect.
Short.
Where are you located?
We're in Stratham, New Hampshire. We used to be in Dover. Company started virtual subcontracting research in my lab at UNH, and then starting to have a pilot facility in Dover, New Hampshire. That was very convenient because my house is just about halfway between campus and the location in Dover. That was excellent. And my son's school was right on the way. That worked great. And then we had to move to Stratham. That doesn't work as well for me. But co-founder of the company, John Shaw, he lives 5 minutes from Stratham, so that works for him now.
Yeah. So I've always been very curious about the fact that you earned an MBA. You had invested in this, scientific education, and did you think you needed to partner it with your PhD for career opportunities? Did you have an interest at the time
I always had in mind that maybe I would start a venture one day with no precise idea. I had a number of ideas that I kicked on early on, especially when I was younger and single with no income. It's a lot easier to kick ideas at that point. That when you start a family and a house and mortgage and so on, then these ideas start to don't sound quite as attractive. Yeah, the MBA came along because by being an employee of the University of New Hampshire as a postdoc, I could get the classes for free. And that was part of my deal with Don Sundberg. That was my advisor, colleague, and friend and mentor, that I would come back, do a postdoc with him if he'd let me do the MBA at the same time. And he thought that was still a good deal. I thought that was a good deal. I think he had the better end of the deal than I did. But, because it was full-time MBA at the same time. So it was manageable because the lab and the Whitmore School were literally about 150 yards apart. So I could run back and forth between lab experiment classes and back and forth. But the MBA takes about 40 plus hours of work a week, and postdoc takes 40 plus hours. So you do the math and anyway, it was a bad idea. But I don't recommend it. So I took this through, and then after this, I went to work for BASF in Germany, a very large chemical manufacturer, the largest chemical manufacturer in the world. And they had no idea what to do with me, PhD MBA. They're like, well, we know what to do with a PhD, a young PhD employee. They had no idea what to do with someone with an MBA at the same time. They had marketing and business tracks, but so there was zero value in my MBA. At that point, I came back to UNH as a research faculty. Again, like UNH is going to do anything with an MBA period. But it was useful in the development. The MBA for me has been learning a language. I thought that the MBA program all along has been very, very easy for an engineer, scientist. The math is trivial. You learn a language, and that's what was helpful. So, I could look at balance sheet and ROI and all these jargon, investment jargon, and all these marketing jargon, and be conversant. I wouldn't say fluent. You kind of have to go practice it for 5 years before you become fluent. But I was conversant and be able to sit at the table and hear this.
I feel that way every time I start with a new client, and you're not in the life sciences where I had my training.
Yep. Exactly. All of what we do in our education, most of it is learning a language of that specific area of expertise.
Yeah. So can you take us through kind of the genesis of the concept that became essentially the start of Idaconex?
Be delighted. So as a faculty, I had to keep finding grants. So as faculty, we could writing grant proposal. If you're in industry, you call it raising money. Practice is the exact same thing. It's almost the same exercise. The process of getting qualified and getting a closing is different, So you get an award if you're a faculty. If you are in a business, you get a closing and you get money in both cases, and you get to go spend it. So there's a lot of similarity, different wording used, but the process was the same. So running a lab, maybe running about $500,000 a year in various grants and awards. I started to work on itaconic acid with some funding from Environmental Protection Agency, working on polymerizing itaconic acid. I had colleagues at the University of Maine. I developed my own network of colleagues and of shared interest and capabilities. Started to work on this completely on the offside. There we could do this. The funding was, peanuts. We're starting with something like $50,000. Put an undergrad on the project for some time. Got nowhere very quickly. And then eventually we got something interesting. Put a graduate student on this, and then that kicks things in a high gear very differently, because suddenly someone's degrees depending on it, so they get massively more motivated. And then progressively we got from, that may be interesting to, there's something. And there was not a big eureka, or like, oh my God, we got the holy grail today. There was never a moment like this, but after a year and a half of this, I was like, well, that's really different than what's out there. And then I had a number of colleagues and friends in the business school coming from the MBA that I did here. And they pushed me, Mike Miranda pushed me into entering one of my students in the Paul Holloway business competition. So I wrote most of the business plan because typical material science engineer guy, I had no idea how to write a business plan. So while the idea from colleagues in the WISB was great, why don't you enter a student with some new technology? The first thing you ask the student is enter a business plan. Even if the Paul Holloway competition is fairly simple requirement, it's not a hardcore business plan by any means. You still have to present the business idea, and the engineers are not trained for this at all. So I help him dramatically entering this, and then through this, he met John Shaw, the student. Minkao met John Shaw, who liked the idea, came visit me in my office. We got good chemistry between him and I. And then,
no pun intended.
Pun intended. And then decided to start the company. So that was the genesis through the university here. And then the next critical step was to work with Maria's office and get a license. There was no getting the company off the block if we're not going to get a license for that technology that we had created in the lab. So it was very easy to work with Maria. Maria was the lead person. Sorry, Mark, that was just before your time. So we got what we think was a good agreement, good arrangement with a lot of foresight into it. And then that's how we decided to start the company. So we signed a licensing agreement with UNH, and 2 days later we incorporated the company.
I guess I'm curious. I've been wondering, when did you know you had a good thing? And now I'm wondering if I should ask you, are there multiple times that you realize you have a good thing, a scientific good thing, a technically feasible good thing, a good business opportunity thing?
Yeah, we had, I'm relating the conversation we had with Maria that many times I went to Maria and said, I got something new, there's a filing here, we can do invention disclosure that our office and they are highly encouraged to do as many invention disclosure as possible. And I would be fairly honest with most of them. I think it's new, something that's patentable, you're going to make money on it. I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Maria would go fight it to put it away. So if the inventors think there's no money to be made because it's easy to go around it, or the incremental value. So something new doesn't mean it's a good idea to start a business. And there's plenty of business cases that you don't have to have something new to get a business going. But that's not certainly what we're trying to do at UNH.
Yeah.
So when did I get the sense that it's something new? As a scientist, you always have to read the literature, figuring what other people have done in that area for so long, and then you find out that you may have a preconceived idea, and then you check what people have done, find that half of the thing that people have done is wrong. If you really dig hard, you find that 3/4 of the things that people write and report is wrong. Certainly, there was a lot of things that are wrong about polymerization of itaconic acid. So it takes a long time just to become what I call an expert in an area, to figure out what's got substance and what is just fluff, or and then having worked in industry, I got a pretty good idea that if you could make polymers fast with a high yield, then that's the basis of a process to go make money. It was really what we did. We took the molecule we make, that bottle that goes around is not new. Oh, you don't want to keep it? This is not new. Actually, there's something new about it, but it was a non-molecule. People had tried to make it for a very long time. The reason why it was not commercial is that the yields conversion from the raw material to the product was low, and it was taking several days to get to this. We got something that goes to 99%, and the byproducts have zero toxicity, and we can do this in less than an hour. So that's the fundamental of the economics. We can make this product for not much money for the conversion. Chemicals are conversion. You buy this, and you're going to make that. And how much money you're going to have to spend to go from here to here, and you want to make sure that the finished product has enough value. Yeah. So that we didn't know. How much value this has, that we had no idea. And that the company is basically all about figuring what's the value of this in various applications. There are 100 applications.
Well, if I can interject, that was one of the challenges that our office had with evaluating the disclosure, and we did not get it right the first time. Yvon pushed back very hard to say, you're missing it. This is very, very valuable. But we had seen a lot of commercial activity in that space, and we thought, when you try to balance the commercial activity, the types of companies that were involved, and then what were our chances of success, even though we knew there was something technically new. It took a while, and it was Yvon's passion, and him telling us we were wrong. He knew that he was right.
She means how pushy I was.
In a really good way. And so we sat down again and talked and said, if he feels this strongly about it, are we missing something? And we were in our analysis. And some of that you just don't know, I think, until time pursues and you invest the resources to really evaluate how it's going to make a difference in the market, or where you can find that market edge.
Maybe I had earned enough credit with you that the previous 12 invention disclosure, I didn't push for them. And this one, certainly, I was harassing her, like, we got to file this.
Well,
this has value.
That's part of it, yeah. Because before, if we had come back and said, Yvon, we don't think that this is the one, we don't think it's maybe protectable, we don't see a business opportunity, he would say, I don't think you're wrong. But this time, he was very clear. He thought I was very wrong, so we corrected that, fortunately.
Yep, thank you.
Yeah. So from the business plan competition, what were some of the benefits to you? I mean, I'd have to think it was interesting to write the business plan, to try to articulate the value that you were beginning to see come out of the lab. But what was that experience like, or what benefits did it bring to you?
Visibility, that was really what it gave. That certainly there was some people from the outside, because what I pushed the OIMP, Maria's office, to file a patent for this. I did not necessarily had in mind, we're going to start a company, we're going to do this. There was no real idea of starting a company. So even entering Minkow in the business competition, there was no, we got to go raise money and go start the company. There was none of this thought. It's only when John Shaw walked into my office and said that he's interested, that he could do some investment, he had some resources, that I thought, well, that would be interesting. That's really only from that point on that the idea of starting a company started. Before that, it was just, an academic exercise, I'd say. It was much more of the thought, we'll license it somewhere, or push it somewhere on someone else's plate, or see what happens with it.
Yeah. So you and John met, I know you had hours and hours of conversations about what the opportunities might be, what it might look like. I should say at the Holloway Business Plan Competition, I remember Ming presenting about a whole new generation of diapers that they could envision using these materials, and that gained a lot of interest. You're not doing diapers, you're doing detergents.
No, we're not doing super absorbent. The idea was to make super absorbent. If we take this material and we cross-link it, mean that those individual pearl necklaces, we attach them with one another. It's called cross-link polymer. And then they absorb water, they swell up, and they stay there, make big gel blocks. And we basically took us 2 years to figure out that there was not much value in doing this. No, it's pretty couple $100,000 evaluation to get to this point. To give you an idea, that's what it took for us to come to that conclusion. So the likeliness that of your office with whatever consultant you could hire could come up with that answer, is zero.
I agree.
And luckily we had more than one option. We think there's hundreds of applications. Detergents as a whole is one application. Within there, you got automatic dishwasher, then you got laundry, and then you got liquid laundry, and then you got stain boosters. I mean, there's a lot. Every one of them, you have to understand what makes the product X in that formulation add value. We call that an application. We can help the retanning process of leather. That's another application you have to figure it out. If you want to be in the baby diaper, you have to understand what are the metrics that make this super absorbent better than this super absorbent. So a company is going to go source ours versus theirs. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of people. You have to have a steep learning curve of what are the various parameters that make something more attractive. And you have to do the homework, so you offer it with the right price. It's price performance. You have to understand what's the performance. You have to figure out what's your costs, and then you come up with a price. And if your price is too close to your cost,
Yes.
You don't control price. Okay, the value, the product, and the market control price. Cost you can control some, but it's engineering and so on. Price is going to be decided by the market, but you want to know what's the price you can carry. It's like you have a brand new car and you're selling a brand new car, and people would want to buy it for $100,000. Why are you going to go market it for $10,000? Because your cost is $5,000. Now you're going to try to sell it for, price it $100,000. That's what it's about. It's figuring what people are going to be willing to pay for, and you don't want to overshoot, and you don't want to overshoot. You don't want to be over because nobody buys, and you don't want to be too much under because you're leaving money on the table that you dearly need. So there's a lot of work behind this.
Yeah. So is this you and John tackling this problem? Were there other resources that you could
No,
use
we do
for
it.
the evaluation?
John is very strong on the marketing end of things and understanding the sales process. So I bring the technical understanding, and a lot of it I have to learn. I didn't get a degree on how to sell polyitaconic acid. What are the properties? So we learn what the properties are for a given application, and then go meet friendly customers, friendly potential customers, and then when we win these, then we go to the less friendly customers.
The whole range.
There's a whole range. There's a whole approach to how to introduce a new product in the market. And, there's 20 different ways to do it. It's different for different people, different product, different companies. I don't think there's one size fit all approach to do it. I'm sure, Bill, the way you sell your equipment is nothing to do with the way I sell this. And whatever works. Really,
So you had mentioned we had signed a license agreement with Idaconex in 2008, September 2008. And then we got our first royalty check that we were talking about earlier just a year later, which I still think is amazing. And so I think it's pretty interesting to hear about some of the experiences you had and some of the resources that you needed to go from starting with a virtual company and what that meant to being able to start your pilot facility in Dover.
Absolutely. So UNH was quite helpful in many ways. I made my resources that I had at UNH quite helpful in the startup of the company, and tried to minimize the clashes between what I wanted to do, UNH resources, and what UNH would let me do. So there was, I could not turn a UNH lab into a profit-making entity. That was not going to work very well. So we started the company virtual, which means that we took some of the money that my partner invested in the money and started to have research grants from the company to my lab at UNH. So suddenly I had two hats. So immediately UNH decided that I had a conflict of interest because I had equity in the company, and that company was doing a research contract with me to do work at the University of New Hampshire. So immediately I had a conflict there. So I won't bore you with the managing of the conflict, but we started to do research in the lab. We hired people directly, they worked in the lab. The lab hired people, so UNH hired people with the money I got from the contracts, and we got sort of a team and an ad hoc team to start working in the lab. Then we started the facility in Dover. We still have, I would say, the more basic research and the characterization and all the access to the instrumentation and the lab at UNH, and then we had the facility in Dover where we're trying to do more engineering things. We had larger equipment. We had a forklift. Very excited when I got the forklift the first time. I had pictures of my son sitting on the forklift. I think he couldn't touch the pedal, so he could not drive it. But I'll give you an idea that immediately the requirements that we had to add 460 volt, 3-phase, 100 amps of this. We had to add running water at X number of gallons. We had to add emergency showers, and we had to add a 5,000-pound forklift. This was the requirement for the equipment we were leasing from Switzerland to bring the equipment, to allow us to rent the equipment. Give you an idea that you're in the lab, you know, things are tens of thousands of dollars. Suddenly you had to put $100,000 on the table just to rent equipment to try to test something. But back to the resources of UNH, so kept working with the lab at UNH and doing more the characterization and the understanding of what was going on the chemistry side, while in Dover we're just trying to put equipment together to see if we could manufacture this.
Okay, so you really separated out kind of the activities that you wanted in each dedicated space, maximizing what those assets were. Can you mention a little bit about the types, because you used a variety of different grants?
Yes, so the grant writing has been very, very helpful. It still is very helpful. We still do quite a bit of grant writing, or I do quite a bit of grant writing. It's non-dilutive equity in the company. I'm not wealthy, or I'm not individually wealthy, whatever you want to phrase it. If I don't get that paycheck at the end of the month, I have to go find another job. So I cannot keep putting equity in the company to try to keep the company running. So one way for me to contribute value in the company is to land grants, awards that federal government or other entity gives us and are non-dilutive. That works well for us. I have luckily an outstanding record of getting this grant. I think I'm batting 90%. It's a very unfair number, but that makes it effective for me to spend the time on writing this thing. So we were very lucky with the NHIRC, either lucky or skilled or hit the right spot or had good friends on the in the NHIRC office. Pretty combination of all of this, and got 4 or 5 NHIRC over a period of 3-4 years. So these were great way to leverage money. Kept me 1 foot at UNH for sure, and over a period of 3 years, 2.5 years, I transitioned from being 100% UNH employee to not an employee of UNH at all. And it was very dicey at the end because as a research faculty, I have to maintain some level of funding for myself to be at UNH. I have to maintain 50% of my salary for the 9 months period of the academic year to still keep a lab at UNH. So at the end, the only money was just paying my salary. That was pretty thin. Yeah. And then I got an exemption at the very end, so I was running on 25%, so basically mopping up the leftover monies. And then I think when the renovation in Parsons Hall came to the last wing I was in, I got basically pushed out of the building and no longer was with UNH, but it was a long transition. And then we got a big break for the company, I'd say, is where we got a USDA DOE grant for $1.7 million. So when you're a small company with a handful of people, suddenly you got a 3-year contract for $1.7 million, 1.85, something like this. That was a big balloon. We knew we'd keep the lights running at least for a couple of years. I knew I would have a salary for a couple of years, so I went to change my car and bought a minivan. I give you an idea. That was a life event for me. That the day we got that award, that was a big deal.
Yeah, I bet it was.
Yeah. So since then, we got several SBIRs. Right now, I have a phase 2 SBIR from NSF that's allowing us to do latex work. There's a whole new phase of work that's very exciting. Likely that will be the adhesive that you'll find on beer bottles in the near future.
Now we're talking.
There's a lot of beer bottles. So.
So right here. So just as a quick aside, the NHIRC that Yvon references, the New Hampshire Innovation Research Center. This is a program funded by the state of New Hampshire. It's for New Hampshire businesses to work with academic partners on, it can be a variety of different problems that they're facing and need this additional resource. Our office administers the program on behalf of the state. And if you want to know any more information, we have some flyers in the back. Tim Willis, who's manning the flyers, is the interim program manager for the IRC. And Mark is also the executive director of it. And we actually have a few IRC recipients in the audience. Looking over there, over there. So we'd be glad to give you some more info. The NHIRC also has been offering a bunch of programming over the past year. We hope to continue to do so about SBIRs and STTRs, which Yvon was mentioning. These are federal funds for small businesses to be able to partner with other entities. If it's an STTR, you partner with academic or nonprofit or research institutions. If it's an SBIR, that's not a mandatory requirement. And they are very interesting, non-dilutive options for funding essentially proof of concept and commercialization plans for research endeavors. And so we can provide more information about that as well.
Great program.
Aside. Yes. Yeah.
Great program.
And another
highly recommend it.
Number of our companies
It's
here.
not that hard. No, it's the limited competition. It's all New Hampshire. You have to find a partner at UNH for sure. And then I think the program is flexible enough to try to fit every square into round holes.
Well, the flexibility, I think, is very important.
Versus if you go for an NSF SBIR, the flexibility is zero. Either you hit the program right on, or you hit it.
Yeah, or they'll look for somebody else.
Yeah,
You need to
it's
find the
not
right
gonna
one. Yeah. So I wanted to go back to this idea that you started this pilot plant in Dover, and you're investing in infrastructure. But who's working there? How are you manning that site?
So we use the UNH student labor force extensively. I think at least 70% of the people working in the company are UNH grad students or former staff at UNH. That's the first. I know the people, I know the faculty. I tap in chemical engineering extensively, chemistry, the biochemistry program, and then colleagues that I had there that I tried to entice out of UNH and try to come to the dark side. So that's perfect grounds for us to recruit people. We just started actually this fall to expand a little bit our horizon. Now we're starting to work with York County Community College, which is one of the feeder programs to UNH. Because I got an NSF supplement to the SBIR grant we have, where I can have undergrad interns for extra money. So basically, I bring these interns. I try to get people from UNH. UNH program, when you get chemical engineer in their senior year, they don't have a lot of time to go play. And then the drive is half an hour to Stratham coming back. So we basically run out of UNH undergrad. But we had a lot of UNH interns over the years that work really well. I'd say we end up hiring 2 out of 3 of them. They are willing to come work with us for the ones that don't go to grad school.
How long do they typically stay with you?
Fast turnover, we don't pay well, we're cheap.
You're a startup.
There are great opportunities for people because we tell them, we can offer you this, you're going to go start to shop around, this is fine. Make it work for both sides. You're getting experience, you're getting enough of a salary to get off, stay eating and paying electricity, whatever you're renting and the car running. And we write you a recommendation that are commensurate to your work. So that works for everybody. There's no hard feelings when we got someone that stay with us for 6 months and say they find a better offer. We say that's great. We cannot compete with Boston biotech salaries. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
We're not going to stop to offer $60,000, $65,000 to someone has just 0 years of experience. This is not going to happen.
So you're willing to take somebody with not as much experience, you're not going to offer them as much pay. 0 experience, you're willing to give them 0 experience.
Yeah.
Do you, how does the high turnover rate affect you, or do you just build that into your plan?
It doesn't hurt us. No, it's, we have lab, we have manufacturing, we need hands to do this. So we're careful that there's some more experienced, more senior people that we make sure they're not going to walk out. I'd say there's probably only one person that would really hurt us to leave right now are our number one employee, our first employee, Brian Lucy. Don't tell him that right now.
I promise I won't.
He's a jack
This
of
is
all
not
trades.
recorded.
He's a jack of all trades. He's our IT manager also. Someone's worked with us for 6 years now. He's done all the programming of the process control we have in production. So he had his hand in so many things that if he was to leave, we would be like in a panic for a while.
Yeah.
Outside of this, anybody else in the company can leave and we'll be fine. I mean, we had all kind of position, people finding us a job, and then we just move on.
Yeah.
I'm here always too. I mean, I do everything in the company. I know there's not a single job in the company that I give to people that I don't know how to do. I'm not saying I get very proficient at it, but I can always take over and go teach someone else how to do that function. So.
And how many employees do you have now?
We're around 15 right now. It depends on how you count also. There's a lot of part-times and then people that piece things together. But.
Okay. I should say quickly, we have Crystal Hicks here. Crystal, can you raise your hand way in the back? And Crystal is the Associate Director of UNH's Career Center. And it's just the type of contact that helps set up internship programs if you want to access UNH students to be able to expose them to your company and try to find a mutually beneficial relationship like that. So you've been at this now for
6 years. We just had our 6th anniversary just a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago. So
yeah,
6 years.
It's been, I think, a pretty amazing story. When you look back on the longevity, some of the triumphs, successes, the fun things, the not so fun things, the lessons that you'd like to share, do things stand out?
There's a lot of lessons. Doesn't mean they apply to other people's situation. So I'll be pretty careful about trying to tell people how they should do it if they want to venture. You know, I took one path, and it's about when you make decisions about what choices you have at that time and point for your situation. So I can tell you the different decision point I had to make along the way. The likeliness they're going to apply to someone else is pretty small. If you're an engineer, scientist, and you're on that side of the equation and you want to venture into a private company, I think you have to be very clear that you're not doing it to save Earth, but to come and up making a profit somewhere. If you cannot deal with that concept, I know there's some scientists that think it's really bad to go make money. Don't start a company. Go definitely for teaching an academic career or work for a non-profit, something like this. By the way, we're still not profitable, so that's has not been achieved. And then, so if you're on the science side of the equation, like I am, partner with someone that understands business well, and preferably someone that's got money and access to more money. That's a big part of the equation. I was lucky to meet John Shaw because I didn't go chase and pursue a business partner. He walked into my office. I didn't go put advertising banners, young scientists looking for a business partner to start a wonderful business venture. Lucky that he had this level of experience and knowledge and stamina to stay with this business and the ability to fund us through most of our spending here. So I think that's a good start. So in practice, I have zero credit for finding him. I should get zero credit at all. But I think it was critical for us to be at where we are at right now.
Yeah.
That's the first part. And the second part, you're going to have to chase money for a long, long time, unless you are really hitting something amazing that costs nothing to make and that you can sell for a lot of money. But otherwise, you expect that to be a long, long battle. So.
Are you finding mentors along the way? Are there folks' expertise you can tap into?
I pick mentors on my own along the way. It's more people that I value, that I go for advice. But in the end, you need more people to encourage you than people to mentor you. The other part I should say, If you're single, go for it. If you're married and you have a spouse, you'd better make sure that your spouse is going to be on board. There's a lot of expectation to manage with starting a company on your spouse side, partner, because it's not always rosy. It's the preconceived notion, especially in academia, that you starting a company, you're going to be rich, right? And it's going to take 3 weeks to do it, right? Many years later, it just means that I'm a lot poorer than if I'd stayed at UNH, but that's the reality of it. So managing this, and then there's the time commitment also that's going to be much harder to manage. There's lots of cases where the company requires me to be there in a very inconvenient time. So you just have to go with it. As the company gets bigger, the money at play gets bigger, so the risk is higher, and that you feel like even more eaten into it. Because if you look back in the first year, what was at play? Several $100,000. Well, personally, that's a lot of money for any form of investment. $100,000 to $300,000. Like, investors look at it. If you lose $300,000 in a startup, that's not bad at all. When you're several million into it and you say, well, we're going to roll the dice on this partnership with a new company, you go like, whoa, do I really want everything I worked on for the past 6 years, on the table and see if it's going to work? So, but you learn to manage the stress also.
What about intellectual satisfaction?
It's tremendous. For me, I am 100% satisfied as a scientist, because one of the things that was frustrating as a young scientist working through, almost 2 decades of research is that you do research, and then the joke was like, so how's research? Are you finding anything? I'm like, no, I'm not paid to find things. I'm paid to search for things, God forbid I have an answer, I get paid for searching, not for finding, And then, the game of writing research grant, where all the work is in writing the grant. When you get the money, it doesn't matter if you find something or not at the end. As long as you found enough of something so you can go write another grant, you're good. So it becomes research for the hell of research. And while early in the career, that's very exciting because you landed some research funds, and that's what it's all about. You write papers, they get accepted. Well, when you write 10 papers, you got the paper number 10's published, you go, all right. Same thing with patents. I work in industry before I came back to UNH. You get excited over your first 3 patents. After this, you go like, okay, and then what? So the fact that we're in pretty much every store in America, that the product that I brought from the lab to commercialization is almost every store in America, and we are like in 12 different countries around the world or something like this, maybe more. There's some companies we don't know where they sell to. It covers probably in more than 20 countries. That's very exciting. That's very, very satisfying. So intellectually, there's nothing that the company can bring to me for more satisfaction. What I like is my shares to be liquid one day. That would be good.
That would be fantastic. Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask Yvon, please?
Yeah, as you describe it, you're squeezed on your profit margin. The value of the product you sell is the market. You're pushing someone else out of that application space, and your cost is your cost. So when you're spending research dollars and additional grant money, where are you spending? Are you trying to find more volume, more customers, or are you trying to find new applications?
Yes and yes. All of the above. So we have a commercial product line that we have production equipment that we can make a range of product from. So this is the number one priority, because we got more production capacity. We can make something like 10 million pounds of this product. So I'd love to maximize that production capacity. For me, the added cost of selling into that market with this product is almost zero. It's still production, raw material, and labor. But that's what I try to expand. So more customer for the product that I have currently. And it still requires research. It's more application research if you want, but it's still from an accounting point, it's just not buying raw material or equipment. I'm paying for people's time and coming up with information that I can ferry to customers. Then we try to find new products. So we have a pretty deep pipeline where we come up with new products. We have synergy with the existing products we have. So we're not, I didn't go into making cell phones out of this. So they are very related. We try to have synergy in the application. So I'd love to have an application, a simple example, like if we're a detergent, we do the water softening, what I'd love to do the surfactants that goes in there, or I like to do some of the solvent that you find in some of the detergents, okay? So I have synergy at the customer or the application, so I know how to make a detergent, for example. So if I can put another component in detergent, it's going to be a lot easier for me to try to sell it. So it can be synergy at the production side, it can be synergy in the application side, it can be synergy that it's a customer I have a relation with. When I come with a new product, they're not going to have me to run around. They're going to listen to me because I gave them 2 wins already. And then there's products that are completely new that have nothing to do in terms of application, marketing, or customers. We're going into coating. So we take itaconic acid, we make esters, make polymers of these esters by emulsion polymerization. They look like, no, not this, same bottle, but looks like milk. These are used to make coatings. They go into making paints for wood, the adhesive that's going to go on labels. They are very much zero synergy in application or anything with these. These are much harder. Luckily, I got a bunch of dollars from the federal government to do this. Try to give you a complex answer to the question.
You're bumping up against the big boys, DuPont and Roman Haas and those chemical guys. How do you find your market niche?
So the analogy, we're an ant and they're the elephant. So we're not, the ant is not displacing the elephant, We're not taking margins away from anybody. The day we do, that'd be wonderful. I mean, that we're no longer an ant, we're like at least the size of a mouse or a rat, probably from their point of view. That'd be wonderful. So the market, there's a lot of different applications. We don't displace a single product. We displace a combination of product with a combination of products. So we don't get noticed by the big guys, really. We're sort of separate sphere. So we're kind of creating a market we're in. It's a product that we have to create demand for the...
So you're creating a product category unique.
That's right.
To yourself.
We're not competing. Nobody else sells these products. So we're not pushing someone else's products. So there's no customers that suddenly lost the volume. There's no company out there that suddenly is losing sales, that suddenly, company Y was buying 2 million pounds of this and now they're not buying it. Who got that market, So we don't do this at all. So we're not noticeable yet. And we like it like this, Last thing you want is to be in the crosshair of a big company, and that can be painful because they know what to do. They can make our life miserable if they want to. But.
Other questions?
Kevin?
I have a question about your patenting strategy.
Sure.
You started out by saying that the itaconic acid itself wasn't patentable. So it seemed like the process was, what made the company viable. So can you sort of walk us through how you tried to project that?
So I was lucky to have worked on patent while I was at BSF. So I was fairly familiar with the process of patents and patent strategy. Great mind at BSF for this. Pretty good school for learning how to do this. So first we had is a process patent. And I know that a process patent is not the strongest thing you can have out there. People can come around it. So in practice, we have 3 layers of process patents. It takes 3 key components to try to beat us at the game that we came up with. That's part 1. Then I found the signature in the polymer that we make that we went and patented.
What do you mean by signature?
So it gets deep into the chemistry in polymer chemistry. It's related to the stereochemistry. You know enough about chemistry that is left-handed and right-handed type molecule that rotate the light, polarize the light one way or another. Something of that nature exists in polymers because when you attach the pearls, if you grab any pearl that's not dead in the middle of the necklace, you take a pearl and a third into the way. Things on the left side are not the same thing as things on the right side. So they end up that each atom has chirality, and we found that there's a signature for that chirality that's different from what was known or patented or published. So we went and put a claim on that aspect. I call a fingerprint of the polymer. So that gives us a composition of matter IP, which is pretty important in that space. So yes, we have a bunch of process patents, but I'll take one composition patent over 10 process patents.
But you actually started with the process patents, but then we're
Yeah.
trying to look for a way
So-
to distinguish your product as a...
Absolutely. Another difference is that you're doing research on campus, you may have one student. If you're really cranking up on the project, you may have two students on this. And I never had a project where I could carry part of my salary and two students. It never ever happened. Certainly you start a company, you got 6, 7 people working full time on the same thing. So the way, it's great, the idea came from UNH, but 95% of the inventive part has been done at the company under the company funding. And you know this, you live this with Coeticom, you know that you got a lot more oomph when you got big dollars all focused on one thing. So there's a lot of things that sort of unwrap from that point. So we started process and with Maria, and then added another 2 layers of process because we went from batch to continuous processing. That was a pretty important step. That's something that I had recognized early on that I told Maria, we can do continuous polymerization. And Maria was like, is that good? I was like, yes, this is good. It means you can do it at a very low conversion cost. Back to your margin, we basically buy raw material at $2,000 a ton and we sell for $6,000 a ton. That gives us lots of space here to be crunched. If the $6,000 a ton doesn't work, we can squish down a lot. So, and then we went for application patents. And application patents, I got mixed feelings about them. You want the application patents, so you don't send sample to a company and then suddenly they say, aha, it can be used in detergent. I'm going to claim the use of Yvon's wonderful product into all detergent on earth. And now you have one customer for detergent and they may go like, I may buy it for 10 cents, or not. So for this, the strategy has been we patent some of them, so detergent, super absorbent, but we go with public disclosure. So now we go, well, use it into detergents. Well, nobody can go claim that they could use it in detergent or use it in personal care. Here's a bunch of formulation on how to use it in personal care. And instead of spending, 5 to 20 grand per patent for something that's not giving me more protection, it's just blocking my competitors from blocking me. It blocks them from doing this. So it's a little bit of cat and mouse game. And then there's the growth of the company. If you don't have patents, then investor gets very shy about putting money on the table because early on you don't have sales. What's the the value of the company is all in the IP and the know-how. So if you don't put some solid patent protection, then people get skittish. I don't know, we have like 9 or 10 patents awarded at this point. I look at it like I'll go patent something only if I think it's gonna be worth the money, because otherwise it's just cost.
I think we have time for one last question, and then we'll move on to more questions, but with appetizers.
Where yours is a global product as far as patenting internationally, I know that I spent an awful lot of money doing that, and I didn't know if you had a strategy of doing it cost effectively because I haven't found one yet.
Cost-effective strategy for global patenting?
Yeah, for international, different countries, or
Yeah. So,
you're paying another fee.
we start filing in the US. We go for PCT, World Patent, immediately because it costs nothing at this point. essentially nothing. We do Europe systematically. And then that's when the question starts after. So for our product, we picked up a couple of jurisdictions that we think we may do manufacturing in the long run. Certainly not this year. So we picked Brazil, we picked Malaysia, we thought about Australia for a while. So couple of countries where we think we may have, an anchor where we would have production. We don't go after China, for example. And our IP attorney is thinking, well, you should think about China. And then we talk with people in China, and every time we talk with someone who's doing manufacturing in China, we're like, we're going to be absolutely insane to go try to protect something in China. It's a jungle out there. And then if you win something in court, which you can, then the enforcement of this is like, good luck. So I think only deep pocket companies have any chance to go do these things. So we stay away from China, both for the IP and as a market. We try to just don't tell them we exist.
I think that's a good stopping point, and then we can continue this conversation. I want to say thank you very much.
No,
Yvon,
thank you.
for
My pleasure to be
starting
here.
our series with us, and this was a lot of fun. So please stick around for some more conversation, some drinks, some food.
Thank you. If you want some automatic dishwasher pods in the back table, bring some. They're just the same thing as you get from Procter & Gamble and so. You just put them in your dishwasher. You don't have to break the little pods. You just put them in there.
When's the last time you bought detergent?
Very long time ago, about 5 years ago. That's one of the benefits of that company. I don't buy detergents.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.